For those of you waiting for part 3 of this build, this isn't it. Since releasing part 2 of this Cross RC T-Rex build, every video I've released after that isn't this. I get questions, when's the 10x10? When are you doing the Cross RC video? When's part 3? Well, I'm working on it, trust me, I'm working on it. Take this as a part 2.3 or 2.4. I thought I'd just update you on the progress of it, and then hopefully that'll give me a little bit more time to finish it. If I put the camera at that angle, it kind of shows you the size of this thing. It's huge. And if this is the first video you've seen of this, I've got a build video where we got up to just the rolling chassis, and I got a part 2 where I actually took it out for a drive. And the topic of conversation for most people is the twin belt drive motors there. But anyway, this is the Cross RC XX10 T-Rex, and it's 1/12 scale, based on, I think it's I want to say M38 or M68, the Soviet locomotive, and actually made, I didn't realise this until after part 2 because of some of the comments, they actually made like a land train, I'll put a picture of it. And this is kind of based off of that, but this one, rather than being like the full land train, it's got like that post-apocalyptic like gunship or a bit Mad Max. Big cannons at the back that move around and go up and down. You've got this roof-mounted gun as well. That also will rotate. It's 10-wheel drive, it's 10-wheel steer, and it's an absolute beast. But why haven't I finished it yet? I've been trying. There's just so much to do. So part 1 was relatively basic, just building up this chassis. Well, just putting parts together and tightening them up. Like any normal build, it just took a little bit longer because, well, of how big it was, and there was like 10 of everything. And then part 2 was relatively basic as well. Got a servo at the front, it's got a servo at the back. 5th scale 100 kilo servos as well, so it's got plenty of steering power. But again, it was relatively simple, putting a servo on, putting the links in. Motors took a little bit to get set up and get the belts and stuff on. And then the electronics I kind of just like patched in there just to get it working. So there was a fair bit of work to get it rolling and then to get it running. But this last bit, this part 3, is going to take way longer. Ooh, this is heavy. There's so much detail on it. So for example, all this stuff under here, I mean, you're probably not even going to really see this, but I still had to paint all this. I had to then stick it on, but because I'd painted everything, paint and glue doesn't really work very well. So I spent ages trying to get it to stick properly, and these were like slightly warped because they're plastic, so I had to hold them on, I had to clamp some of it down. It just took ages. And then the last kind of bit I got to was all this top bit and putting these guards on, putting this panel down and some fixings and stuff in there, putting the tow hitch on. And this is a proper tow hitch, so it's locked in place, and then you lift that and it opens up and then locks down like that. There's a spring in there, there's a few little, there's C-clips and E-clips to put on there and lock all that in. There's a massive amount of work. I spent pretty much all last week just trying to get to this point. Same as building this gun and painting everything. And it's not a case of just getting everything out and painting it. You have to get all the parts first, then you got to get all the hardware, then you got to build it all. But what I don't want to do is get everything out, like prime it all and start painting it, then not know what parts are what. And after pretty much a full week of painting, I've still got all of this. Look at it all. There's just so much stuff. So much stuff to do. And if you look at all like the screws, bolts, nuts, washers, O-rings, cables, electronics, there is still a lot more to do. A lot more. And at the moment it's so cold and I've got limited heating in this workshop. So painting stuff like this, I have to prime it. Obviously all the parts I painted individually on this one because it needs to move, so I couldn't just put it together then paint it, which I will do for some of it. I'll add some finishing touches to it. But because of the temperature in the workshop, even in my makeshift paint booth that I put some radiators in, it was pretty much a full day just to get primer on. Then I had to leave it 24 hours before I painted it. And I started rushing it to try and get it done a bit quicker, which then started putting me under some pressure. And I don't like deadlines. I don't like having the pressure of you have to get a video out here. And that's why I don't accept a lot of stuff for like sponsored videos. And even when a company sends me something and they say to me, don't worry, take your time, just get it out whenever, I still feel under pressure. So I've stopped at this point to update you. So I sat myself down and kind of thought, there's no deadline for this. It'll be finished when it's finished. I don't want it to turn into a chore. I'm really enjoying building it, and I don't want to spoil that enjoyment by, well, rushing it. And obviously in between building that, I've had other videos doing. There's a TRX4 one, that took a couple of days. We had the new FMS release, my long jump video, another new release. I think we've had the Centon in between part 2 and now as well. So as much as I'd love to spend every hour of the day building it to get it finished, it's just not possible. So it's gonna be done when it's done. And I wasn't gonna show you the cab, but sneak peek, so you've seen it. You'd have to wait till part 3 to see. That isn't the finished colour. It's an idea I'd kind of thought about, and then someone mentioned it in the comments for part 2. So I was like, yeah, actually, I think I'm going to do that. These are the colours that it was in the render that was done like 5 years ago for a computer game or something. And also the actual trains come in like a red and like a yellowy gold. And they also come in a green and like a yellow. So I thought we'll go original on the colour, and then I'm going to scrub it up. I mean, it's not a perfect paint job anyway, but we're going to scrub it up, so flatten it down, and then I'm going to spray satin black over it. Wait for me to finish before you go, no, don't do that. Thin, I'm going to do it thin in places, and then I'm going to rub some bits off. So hopefully the end result is you'll still see some of this yellow and red, but the whole thing's going to be like that sort of Mad Max style. So I'm 90% sure that's what I want to do. If you've got any other ideas that may look better, then let me know in the comments, but that's what I'm going for at the moment. So there's your update. It'll be done when it's done, but trust me, I am working on it. It's not on a shelf gathering dust like some of my other projects. It is my priority.